Hi, everybody. I assume you have figured out that you're muted.
Oh, you can.
If you're echoing, it's because
Beth is going to be an exciting recording with no sound.
Now we go. Here we go. Can you hear us now?
I can. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, sorry. And that was my confusion with the, we're using the owl, and I wasn't sure.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was the problem, but we fixed it. So thank you for joining us. We're waiting on Krista. She was going to be a few minutes late.
Okay,
So
sounds good.
We're just chatting.
Okay,
So,
yep. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. I apologize.
No worries. So I'm Darla, and then we have, I don't have to move the computer, sorry. This new technology.
I think we've met before, Alex.
We have, yeah. Good to see you again.
Yep, and then we have a couple folks in the back of the room who you probably have met before as well.
We were both here as well last time, Alex. I'm Porter.
Great.
I'm Jim.
I'm AZ.
Hey, everybody.
Hi. Great. So we're just trying to go through a little bit of housekeeping before I'm just waiting for Krista, basically.
Yep, sounds good.
So we are at the public comment period. AZ just introduced herself. I didn't introduce myself, AZ. I'm Darla.
Hi, Darla.
Former select board member, longtime town person. And I mentioned it to Jim, but I want to apologize for last month. That was totally on me. It totally went out of my brain. I had taken minutes at the last meeting. I said I would facilitate the next meeting, and I didn't. And then I came home after being on the road all day and fell asleep on my couch. So I really didn't do it. So I take full responsibility, and I will do the next.
I think we all dropped the ball on that one.
I will
We
do
had
the next
some
meeting.
discussion and.
Yeah, that was me. So I will pick it up for next time as well. Let's see, any additional items to our agenda this evening that we know about? Anybody, anything you want to add?
I think we're gonna have to, probably should, if it's not on there, we probably should address the recruitment efforts and
That's on there.
status of the committee and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, under old business, we have CVOEO, survey updates with Alex, and open seats and member recruitment. Hi, Krista.
Hello.
I was being you for a minute. We just
I love that
started.
for you. You keep going.
We just got started. Well, now that we realized that I didn't have the sound on, and my sound was on, but their sound wasn't on. And anyway, we got that fixed.
Yeah.
Thanks to AZ. So we are just at the point was there anything from the March meeting minutes you wanted to make an adjustment to?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And we
Feels like so long ago now.
I know. So we can approve those. And then our public comment period, AZ introduced himself. And then we were just saying, is there any additional items that we want to add to the agenda? And I'll let you take it from there. After you take a breath.
I just pull up that, or I guess I could see if you have that.
I do. I can even make it bigger.
And we've got Alex here. Hey, Alex.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Is,
I think that's probably where we want to go now.
Okay.
So Alex, I think we'll turn it over to you to share what you've got for our
Yeah, sounds
data
good.
set.
So I'll give a quick sort of background, and then I'll share my screen, assuming I am allowed to, and sort of show off, I guess, sort of a dashboard of some of the results. So for those who aren't aware, super long story short is I worked with a bunch of students here. So first of all, I'm a statistician here at Middlebury College, and I teach a course on nonprofit consulting. And in one of these courses, I worked with some students, partnering with CVOEO, the Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity, which broadly serves Chittenden and Addison counties. And as part of their community needs assessment, which they're required to do every 3 years, we asked a ton of questions about what the community needs. What I'm going to show you is a whole bunch of data from that survey in aggregate form to sort of protect anonymity. We don't have sort of individualized responses, but we do have a whole bunch of aggregations and sort of cross tabs, so you can see how people of different income brackets, different genders, for example, might be feeling about certain things. And as part of that survey, a bunch of respondents from Bristol responded, thanks in large part to you guys sort of getting the word out. So in total, just short of 100 people responded from Bristol to the main survey, compared to about 1,600 people
from
sort of in
Bristol?
total. Yeah, so it's actually more than that, which is to say about 100 people from Bristol responded to the main survey. And then I believe Krista uploaded something like 70 to 80 just kind of the sort of open-ended Bristol
Yeah.
4-question responses. And so the data that I'm going to show you are sort of the amalgamation of those two things. So there's about 100 respondents from Bristol residents, the sort of the general CVOEO survey, which asks tons of questions about homelessness and economic need and weatherization and climate change and transportation, stuff like that. But there's also a bunch of sort of text stuff from sort of the open-ended questions. So I'm going to share my screen and sort of show off this, although I'm going to throw a link in the chat and I can send this to Krista. I will admit that I'm hosting this dashboard on a free server, so if everybody accesses this right now, there's a world where it crashes. But I'll throw it in the chat so that you all have access to sort of play with this afterwards. Let me share my screen. Okay, so again, quick background, me and some students sort of worked on this to help CVOEO answer some questions about what their community needs. And I think that you can use it to sort of better understand Addison and Chittenden County, but also Bristol residents. The super long story short is this dashboard is broken up into sort of 4 tabs. And so I'm going to start with the demographics tab, which just gives you an idea about some of the sort of demographics of the people responding to this survey. So you might notice on the left side here, you can sort of tab between all respondents, which is the default. Or if you want to look just at Bristol specific respondents, you can click that and it'll update everything to sort of just show you Bristol. In particular, CVOEO was interested in looking at people who were service users, which is essentially a proxy for people around or below the poverty line who might be using any number of CVOEO's services, in case you're interested in those. And you can sort of vary different demographics. So for example, here's the gender breakdown of all respondents, which is predominantly female. And as you'll see for Bristol, it's almost exactly the same as I go back and forth, which sort of brings up my first point, which is that this is definitely not a perfectly representative sample of Bristol residents or of residents in general. So sort of keep that in mind when you're thinking about trying to generalize any of these results to the broader population. These results are, I mean, when you have something like 150 total respondents from Bristol, I assume that's something like 10% of the population. I guess I don't actually know how big Bristol is. So it's a pretty large population, but it definitely is not random. So just keep that in mind. So you can sort of play around with this to sort of see what the demographics look like, although as it turns out, the demographics are pretty similar between Bristol respondents and sort of CVOEO at large. Moving over to sort of the one variable graphs tab, the survey asked a lot of questions about community concerns. So for example, we have questions like, how serious of a concern is childcare, climate change, cost of living, employment, food, homelessness, etc. And in many cases, what Bristol residents felt basically aligned with the general population. So if I look at childcare, we can see, for example, that Bristol residents, 47% of them found that childcare was a serious concern. And if I look at all respondents, I guess it's slightly lower at 38%. But as you might imagine, everyone is sort of finding childcare as a pretty big concern. But there were some differences. So for example, if I look at homelessness, 66% of all respondents in Chittenden and Addison County think that homelessness is a serious concern, but Bristol looks very different, right? The majority of people don't find that homelessness is a concern. And so it's interesting to sort of go back and forth and compare how people in Bristol are feeling to all respondents. By and large, they tended to align. So you can play around with this and you can download any of these graphs if I want to look more at them. Then there's sort of a section on if you want to look at some crosstabs, meaning I want to look at the responses to these questions broken apart by certain demographic types. So for example, you can look broken apart by gender or broken apart by employment status. Worth noting that we've hid any of these categories that have cell counts less than 5, meaning in order to preserve anonymity, we sort of hid a bunch of bars if there was too low of a count category. Again, by and large, Bristol residents are sort of agreeing with sort of the majority of respondents in general. So you can play around with these questions, and I'm happy to take questions, but I think it's maybe better if you just mess around and look at these. There's about 100 questions here asking opinions about taxes and housing assistance and food assistance and public transportation. And so you can play around with these, but I'll sort of maybe go through one of them so you can see what you're looking at. Here, for example, we've asked the question, in your opinion, how easy is it to obtain public transportation? This is all respondents. And right now, let's break it down by service user. So here are our CVOEO service users. And what we can see is that 19% of them think it's very hard to obtain public transportation, which aligns actually perfectly with the sort of subset that aren't service users, meaning whether or not you're a service user, it really doesn't matter. 19% find it hard to obtain public transportation. 25% say that it's somewhat hard compared to 32%. So again, pretty similar. Long story short here is whether you're a service user or not, these distributions look about the same. We can look at Bristol respondents. Most Bristol respondents are not CVOEO users, for example. And we can see that, for example, 12% non-CVOEO service users find transportation very hard. There are like 1,000 different combinations here, so I encourage you to sort of play around with this, looking at home status or employment status and seeing how people feel about each of these questions related to Bristol.
Could I just ask a quick question?
Of course.
Or I guess a couple, maybe it's more than one question, but
That's okay.
What percentage of folks that did the overall survey were service users?
Yeah, good question. Let me find out. So I'm going to go to demographics. I'm going to go to service user and all respondents. So it looks like we have about 800 service users and about 500 non-service users.
Okay. And was that about like what they expected, do you know, or?
Yeah, so CVOEO was intentionally targeting people who were either service users or people who did not use their services but qualified for their services. So in essence, essentially targeting lower income groups.
Yeah, okay.
And that fits a little bit with when I did post in Front Porch Forum with the survey. Someone emailed me back saying like, this really isn't, geared towards, me or us, but I answer the questions anyway.
And so you can...
So I guess my question, Alex, is, so we're looking at, is this all respondents here, service users?
Yep.
And then for the Bristol ones, because the Bristol was partly the survey and partly the ones we submitted, we don't have that information for, right?
That's correct. So the ones that you submitted that were just the sort of 4 Bristol specific questions, all that information is contained in the Bristol specific questions tab. And so all of these demographics, all of the data here is just for people answering the general survey who happen to say they were from Bristol. And some found their way through the messaging you guys did, and some found their way through, other means.
Thank you. And so was the Bristol breakdown service user, non-service user very similar to this?
Yeah, so here's the breakdown for Bristol. So it's about 70 to 30 no to yes. And for all respondents, it's about 70 to 30 yes to no. So they're quite different, as you might imagine.
Okay.
And you can so if you only want to see data from non-service users, or I guess if you only want to see data from service users, then you can sort of just check this to look at just that kind of data, if that's what you're interested in. Yeah, good questions. Other questions?
I have this link.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And in the ways that we can slice it and dice it, I see the Bristol respondents and all respondents. I'm assuming we wouldn't be able to do Bristol and Middlebury, or like if we wanted to.
Not as it's designed, but I could easily do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
don't know if that's something that would be interesting.
I'm also happy to share.
Or just seeing what other communities look like compared to ours.
Yeah, I'm trying to be careful here because while we didn't explicitly say all of the results would always be anonymous and not shared with anyone, I'm trying to also protect people's experiences in a way where I just don't I guess what I'm trying to say is if you have specific questions, I would be
Yep.
more than happy to either provide you data or analysis to help answer them, but I'm a little wary about just giving over all of the data because
Yeah,
obviously a lot
that's
of these
fair.
people are identifiable and yeah.
Yeah, totally fair.
And so finally, there's the sort of Bristol specific questions, which was the 4 questions that your committee sent me, which many of the respondents sort of separate from what you guys did responded to these who happen to be from Bristol. And then this is also added sort of all of the responses that I assume Krista typed manually or copy pasted, which
I
sounds
did, yeah.
so I
You know
applaud
what?
you
I
for that.
tuned
That
into
does
some
not
good
sound like
music
fun.
and I just got in a zone. It was like mowing the lawn. I just
Okay, well,
was like,
it's all here. So I haven't done a ton of like actual analysis. I added a little word cloud because I think they're fun.
Yeah.
All of the actual text is output here, and you can search for keywords and things. So I could look for like people, or I could look for community, and it'll just filter down to just those things. And at any point, you could just download that data set, either filtered or unfiltered, in case you want to do something with the text.
Okay.
Which is a long-winded way of saying I didn't really do any analysis, but the text is all here. And the long story short is people really like Bristol. If you compare these kinds of responses to sort of the general, I mean, many of the responses in the general survey are from Burlington, so that's not totally comparable. But I'll be honest, the responses in most towns are very bifurcated, right? There's people who are like super happy and love everything, and there's people who are really struggling. And for the most part, that's just not what you see from these responses. And maybe some of that is in the way the questions are worded. And there definitely are people, you know, for example, this person says they never feel valued by the Bristol community. So it's not that there's no negative responses, but the proportion of positive responses is kind of insane. So it's worth reading through some of these and you can sort of search through them. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. Very cool.
Questions, thoughts about any of this?
Nope, just thankful that you let us tag along and,
Yeah.
help facilitate getting this, data for us.
Of course. So my hope, I mean, I've sort of provided this link, so feel free to sort of play around with it. What I imagine is that this would be some sort of springboard of ideas of like, you see things and you have questions and I'd be happy to answer them in whatever way I can. And I can also provide Krista with any of the raw data for Bristol specific responses in case you want to sort of do your own digging and looking at those.
Awesome. So we have the link, but I think what I hear you saying is if we, as we're digging through, more questions come up, and we'll try not to bombard you.
That's okay. Yeah.
You're getting to summer mode, so we want to respect.
No, I mean, summer is like research mode, so this is exactly the kind of stuff I'm doing. I'm totally happy to take any questions you guys have.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on and sharing the dashboard and then sharing it with us. That's great.
Of course. Yeah.
All right.
So feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help or adjust this in any way. If you want to see some other feature added or be able to, split it apart in some other way, just let me know.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much,
Of course.
Alex.
Yeah. Have a great day, guys.
Bye.
I never know what screen to look at.
I know. I don't either. That's why I look
Screen.
like I'm, staring into like
All the screens.
Ethernet.
And to
here.
look like if you're actually talking to them, you have to look at the owl, right? Because
Right,
that's
yeah.
what the camera is.
That's funny.
So like the $1 million question is, I guess, what do we want to do with that information?
What's next?
And what
Yeah.
makes sense to do with that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that is our first question for him. He said you didn't do any analysis. What analysis would he do to parse from that data what the participants who spoke had to say about what Bristol's core values are? So, I mean, I guess obviously all committee members probably want to go read all those responses, but maybe he has input on how we can, or how you can use that to come up with core values, and or Jessica, because that's what she also does, is take that type of verbal feedback and produce an analysis. So those are the first thoughts that I had.
There's also the possibility, I don't know, he might actually have this as a resource, but AI resources to help mine through
Yeah.
the text responses.
Yeah,
Or at least to help summarize, like what
Yeah.
are the common things in there.
I have done that
I-
with ChatGPT
Okay.
before, where I've taken qualitative data and I just copy it and put it in and ask for it to be themed.
Mhm.
And it's not perfect, but it definitely gets you started, and then you can clean it up. So I think that's definitely something we could do.
But he might have a specific tool that could help with that too,
Yeah,
a more specific one.
I would just like to say thank y'all for doing this survey. It's really, I'm working on doing a survey that's more on development wise
yeah,
in Bristol, doing it as a side project. But seeing that data, really, is really cool. A big focus of the survey I wanna do is reaching the folks that live in Bristol that might not necessarily be landowners, or the ones that are recorded in the grand list, or those who
yeah,
own business, and seeing those responses there is really impactful. So I'd like to use your data,
yeah,
if
Yeah.
that's all right.
Absolutely.
For working on planning decisions that really capture residents of Bristol and the folks who live here and build families here and build themselves here. So, thank you.
That's been the goal and the challenge that we've been struggling with.
yeah.
Because we started out trying to just have informal conversations, and that wasn't reaching people that, trying to find the ways to reach people that aren't the Front Porch Forum users every day and go to the farmer market every week and that kind of stuff. It's hard.
It is hard. What is your ideal timeline for when you're doing your survey?
I mean, I was hoping to get a grant to like be able to get funding to pay for help with getting it out, because ideally I want to do a town-wide
Yeah,
like blast.
yeah.
I'm hoping to have it wrapped up by September. I'm working on drafting questions right now, and I'm working with Courtney at Core,
Oh, awesome.
to kind of work on some of that and talk to you about my survey ideas and things. Yeah. So it's kind of gonna be a three-phased survey. It's gonna be a general survey, and then I'm more focused on like actual applicants from development review board and the zoning process to make sure that that process is not onerous on landowners, and that we're encouraging development while also keeping in line with our rules and regulations. And then the last element of this kind of project is doing actual community-wide engagement and like sitting down and asking people like, so kind of how you guys asked, what is your value, of asking, what do you want to see in Bristol? What do you need in Bristol? What aren't you getting here? And using that data to further provide it to the planning commission so they have the most informed information. And I would really love to use some of your data in that.
They marching now?
They love it. They love that idea.
Yeah, they're very enthusiastic.
I think it could be really cool too if if you're able to share with folks like these are the themes from this survey. Like, what do you think about that? And how does that relate to your own thinking specifically about development? And then you're kind of taking like these broad, the broad data that we got and trying to help folks identify what it means to them in different aspects of our community.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think housing is always the biggest topic, and especially when it comes to development of like, we need housing, we need lots of housing. Yet there's a lot of perceptions and biases when it comes to housing as well. And making sure that all voices are heard, all of renters, even, Bristol doesn't have any rental specific zoning, should we? That's up to the people of Bristol. But kind of those questions, I see what you're saying of like taking that data and combining it, I think
Yeah.
it's a good idea. But just wanted to say thank you for the work that y'all have been doing here. And
We're
also our work here.
trying. We're limping along a little bit.
I mean, your product is right there, so I think your work is moving along and it's in the responses from the folks. And it's the fact that you had 100-something residents, so your efforts have been heard and answered.
Yeah, that was really, 100 was really a shocking number that
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting to hear that. I was expecting like 30, you know, something like that.
Well,
And
even the number of paper
and I think it's
ones.
more than that when you add in the
Yeah, it was
paper.
100 plus the 70.
Yeah.
Plus the 70, yeah,
Yeah,
Oh, wow,
yeah.
that's remarkable.
the 170, that's.
And I think on your next steps list, obviously, the committee wants to read through the responses and then do whatever you do to come up with the themes, but I think the select board would be very eager to see this data
Yeah.
and to see your, what you wanna do with it, so I would, put that on your list,
Yeah.
this summer to do what you need to do with the data and then take it to them and share it with them, so that they can see what you've been, working towards this past year. And then, when you started this process, the idea was, okay, we'll gather the core values from the community. That will help us shape our draft mission statement, and then we can put together a work plan to propose to the select board what we as a committee, what you think this group should do. And there may be some ideas that came directly out of that data gathering, but there were also some ideas that were in the original grant, which we've had extended again till the end of
Oh, wow.
the year. So, at a certain point, I think, doing something is probably gonna be necessary, or, talking to the select board about how that money gets used.
Yeah, I wonder if, we all need to take time with this, play around with it, think about what questions or places for more inquiry we have. And then in addition to sharing the data with the select board or the themes that we heard, I think it would be great to share it back out with the community. It's always really good to tell people, like, we asked you.
Right.
And here's what thank you, and here's what we learned, and here's what we are thinking about doing next, and, do you want to join us in that, or do you have any other thoughts you want to share, or?
But should it be in a summarized format for the community and or the select board,
Yeah.
or just the whole
I think we
kit
could,
caboodle?
well, I think we could share a link, but I think a summarized, I mean,
Yeah,
who's gonna read through the thousands of options?
Select board, I would suggest doing a memo of like, here's a summary of what we've done.
And if you want to poke at it more, here's the link.
Yes, exactly, and that way you can also really punch out the themes, you can summarize it, and then for the public, I would do a little bit more informal, something maybe with colors and pictures.
Yep. Sounds like somebody who's
And in
done
both
this.
cases, tying it to what's next, your work plan,
right.
what ideas you have or whatever.
Yeah,
That might aid in recruitment too.
yeah, we're doing stuff. Thank you.
Yeah,
For
I have
joining
to,
us,
I have to pop out, but it
Yeah.
was lovely to meet y'all.
Yeah, good to meet
Yeah.
you too.
Too.
And please, after you chew on this, if you
Yeah.
have thoughts, I'd love to hear.
Feel free
Yeah.
We would
to
all-
join us anytime. In fact, we
Or
are
if
looking
you would
for
like to
a,
join our shrinking
we are
committee.
looking for a liaison from the town.
We were supposed to have a town liaison, which we don't have, so.
Let me see, I have.
Yeah,
You wanna
Walk
be meeting,
slowly
right?
backwards.
one of us join
I
us.
have 2 boards already.
One of us, one of us.
Only meets once a month.
I know.
And sometimes not that.
I'm gonna chew on that off first.
Yeah.
Committee, there's, I think Darla said
Quietly
she
walk
makes
backwards out the
snacks.
door.
I can make sense.
Thank
I'm sure there were snacks offered.
Okay, so, it would be great, I think, between now and our next meeting, for us to commit to looking more closely at all this and seeing what themes we can identify. And I'm happy to, either play around with ChatGPT or reach out to Alex to see if he has a better, more nuanced tool that he would recommend that's free that we could use. to do that, so that we can spend the next meeting, I know, it's a little
Music's getting
distracting.
jazzy. I'd be happy to be a thought partner in that if you need.
Awesome.
Have a great night, folks.
Good night.
Bye.
A what
I'll
part?
always go through the, I'm going to at least go through
I thought you
go
said
through
a
the data,
bot part.
like, you know, let you know when it's fine.
I don't know.
Then I was gonna say, touching back on something you brought up with Alex, if you had any specific questions that you wanted to ask him about, like Middlebury and whatnot, feel free to, you know, come up with a couple and we can shoot them off to him.
Yeah,
If there
oh,
was
you
specific-
mean like.
Like when you were saying,
looking
like
at-
comparing, like, you know,
Yeah.
communities, it
Yeah,
sounded like he was willing to share information, just didn't want to get access to the, you know,
Totally.
to the big pile. So
Yeah.
if there was something specific, you know,
I don't, yeah, and I didn't even ask it because I had anything specific in mind, but I wonder if, I think I was more maybe wondering if, like, as any community is just tackling different problems, it's interesting to hear how they're doing it and what their residents are thinking and how that
Yeah.
compares to what our residents
yeah,
are
because when you
thinking.
brought that up, I was thinking, yes, along the lines of, you know, while Bristol didn't say a lot, you know, may not say much about homelessness or be as interested, I imagine Middlebury probably, it's more front on their mind,
Right.
being a bit big, you know, not only scale wise, but
Yeah.
also they've had problems with, you know, people on the bridge and.
Yeah, and it's more visible, like it may be very well the same issue here, it just may not be as visible, right?
I was a little surprised that the transportation numbers were as low as they are, because right now, transportation is a really hot topic at the state level. They're talking about rural transportation in really big ways. There was just a study that UVM did on schools and transportation availability, which is, I think, I have the results from that. I'd be happy to share it with this group.
Oh, yeah,
And they're looking at, the next study that they're going to do is, early care and learning and access to like CIS services, just children's integrated services, which could be anything from mental health to physical health to a number of other things. But transportation to those services is a real barrier for a lot of
Yeah.
families.
Could be a lot of them checked out, like, okay, I'm out in Bristol, there, I mean, there
There's
is a,
nothing.
there, I think there's a bus, I've seen it once.
The bus goes by my
But
house
they've
several
just,
times a day.
they've just resigned that it's just not gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Rather than speak up, so.
yeah.
Transportation, housing.
So you were, because the numbers looked like people didn't think it was as high of a problem as you were
Yeah, I would have
surprised by that.
expected it to be higher,
Yeah.
but maybe that's just not, that's my perception, because
Yeah.
I sit in those meetings and I hear that all the
Well,
time.
you know what, though, didn't he say that the bulk of our respondents were not service users?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
70%
and
or something.
I'm gonna just make an assumption that I think, you know, maybe we gathered paper surveys from similar, you know, folks that are not service users, who knows, but we don't really know, but if
Right.
that is the case.
Yeah.
And it would be also really interesting to put out what we heard and be like, ask folks,
And, I mean, it was
does that
19,
resonate with your
yeah,
experience?
it was 19%, that's almost 20% of our people that responded, that's a huge issue for. So if you can't get to a service or a store or an
Right.
appointment, that's a big deal,
Yeah,
you know?
Also wonder about the context of some of the questions as far as when someone's reading it, what context are they putting onto it? Like if I'm reading about transportation, am I thinking about just transportation within Bristol? Or transportation in general across
Yeah.
the county, across the state?
Right.
And different people's bias will influence how that context is.
Is it
or what that
transportation to
context is.
services, is it transportation to the store? Like
Yeah.
that? Yeah,
Yeah,
I can walk to the store, but I can't get to my doctor's office, like, so, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting, I'm really interested to dive into some of that.
yeah.
So maybe it might be good for the next meeting too, for us to choose like 3 things that really pop out of all of those questions, you know, for all of us.
I like that. I like us having a focus. Like,
Yeah,
There was something that popped out right away when you had it on the screen for the text ones. The person that said never, another one that said I try to go about unseen in public. You know, those are
Yeah.
hard answers or
Those are hard
responses, so
answers.
I appreciate that they provided that.
I was just gonna say and brave, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
And see, looking at the other questions, and do they provide any insight as to why they responded that way?
The select board meet over the summer on their same schedule? They do. And then this money is up, we have till the end of December.
The town has it, it's just that the community foundation has been waiting for 2+ years for a report on how it was spent.
Yeah.
So, you did spend some of it with Tabitha, the previous town administrator spent a little bit of it also,
Mhm.
With Tabitha, and the bulk of it is still sitting there waiting for equity activities.
Equity activities.
10 grand, is that what it is?
Yeah, it's,
Ish.
I can't remember what the details are. Valerie did a report before she left. So I'm sure we could get that information, we could make a request.
That'd be good to have for next time.
Cause I'm just thinking, even if we have the money, if we set a target for December 2025, we will have determined what's going to happen with it. And working back from there, you know, what select board meeting do we wanna go to, what,
Makes good sense.
you know, what you know, when would we wanna have recommendations of what to do with that money?
Yeah, I'm sure the community foundation would be perfectly happy with you saying, if you made a report to the select board and they said, that sounds great, go for it.
Mhm.
Like, there's not like a timeline necessarily,
Yeah,
but, it's just really a courtesy of saying like, we really are planning to use this money for the
Yeah.
intended purpose.
I mean, it feels like we would need maybe 2 meetings, one to kind of look at and talk about what we saw in the data and what we think the themes are, and then another to figure out what our recommendations might be for ways we can use the money in a way that would move the work forward that aligns with those themes. I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how to get us, how to move it forward without rushing.
Well, I wonder if we come back with like 3 things that stood out to us.
Yeah.
We can build from those 3
Yeah.
suggestions. If there's common themes, maybe we can build from that.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that's one thing we could do.
Yeah.
I'm open
No,
to
I like that.
whatever.
I know I should know this, Porter, but I'm assuming all of the work that's already been done is on the town website somewhere in the equity committee, like,
You mean that you guys have done?
not that I know that's there, all of our meeting notes, but, from the work that, like, there were a lot of recommendations when Val and Tabitha hosted a bunch
So,
of meetings.
yeah, so in the original grant request,
Yeah.
there was, several pages of ideas
Right,
for things the town could do.
yeah,
A portion of which were attributed to a potential equity committee as possible ideas.
yeah,
That document, I think, is in your notes because we attached it to one
okay,
of your early meetings.
okay.
So it's also.
So it should live on the town
It
site.
does live on your equity site. It also lives on the town select board website because they were documents from select board meetings.
Yeah.
So, and I think there's like the original grant request, the grant report, and the second grant request. And it's the second grant request that listed, because the grant report suggested the formation of an equity committee, and the grant request is what the select board approved to get the money to use for these purposes.
Okay,
So those are both there.
okay, because I'm wondering if we, you know, we talk about our themes, we talk about what we noticed and where there might be similarities. And then, you know, it sounds like one, we have to reaffirm our mission, because it's a draft right now, and 2, then identify some things to do. If we have that list of things to do with it already, we could cross-check it with what we've identified in the themes, instead of trying to come up with a whole new list of things to do, to see if what from this list that's already been generated seems like it would be a good place to start. And maybe make our recommendations to the select board based on the top, you know, 3 of those that, and a ballpark of how much that would cost. I'm trying to remember I know the welcome bags is one idea, but I'm trying to think about some of the other, I think some of them were like a little harder to ascribe a cost to, like going through manuals and that sort of work, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the things on the equity committee list were, yeah, you could probably pull it up if you go to the website. But I think that to your point, Krista, you guys could probably, whoever sends the minutes out, if that's you, Darla, just attach those PDFs again, and then all the committee members will have the
That would be great.
PDFs. And they can look at that section on the page that says equity committee and just see how it relates to some of the things that people have put in.
Yeah.
Or thoughts that occur to you or that have come up for you in the last year.
I mean, that sounds like could be one of the more productive ways to take what we heard, take this list that's already been generated and find some things to start with.
Yeah, and those are just ideas, they weren't by any ways strictures, it was just
Right.
some thoughts that came out of the first conversations.
Right, and we could continue to do that, brainstorming and idea generating along with also saying, but here's some things that we could, like maybe there's some low-hanging fruit that we could do that meets the goals and the mission, that resonates with the values that we heard from folks. To just get us going.
Are the welcome bags still happening, Porter? Are you still doing those?
Yes, I don't any longer get a list per se from the town clerk, but the assistant is trying to track when a property tax transfer comes in. She puts it on a list and then I come in once a month and just get that and I go hand deliver them. So we're back on, we missed like a year and a half of not delivering any because I wasn't getting the list. And so those ones are just like, if you moved to town in the last year and a half,
Let me know.
send you a bag, and maybe a half dozen people reached out and said that they or their neighbor was new in that time period.
Nice.
I'm sure there were another 25 that I didn't get. And then in December or January, I started this with the town clerk's assistant, said, would it be easy to just write it down? And they were like, we could do that. So, and then I had talked to AZ because I think it would be really important to give those to renters as well. But I don't have a way to reach them because the way that I was doing it before was with property tax transfer. So when I bought Jim's house, then there was a tax form.
Right.
And so I knew to go to that address and give the new residents.
Right, and you wouldn't necessarily know that with renters.
You know, so,
Yeah.
but it would be easy enough to go through the grand list and pull all the parcels that have multiple units and contact the landlords and just say, we have these packets for your tenants. If you get a new tenant, let us know and we'll bring you one. Because I'm sure that the landlords would be happy to have their tenants get one. In whatever way is convenient for them. And that's something I know is on AZ's list because they do want to be reaching out to renters as well. And
That could be a great way
to
share something and then ask for feedback or input or information.
exactly. So if this committee could help AZ by pulling from the grand list, I know that that's something that can be done. It's just
And then
somebody has to do it.
and then who's buying the bags right now? Where's
What's
money
that?
coming? Where's the money coming from to buy, what is it? You're doing that, but
But I
which
sometimes.
is a beautiful
people-
thing, but an idea that to make this sustainable.
Exactly, that's why I thought it'd be a good idea for the equity committee. I mean, the recreation department, the first year, made a donation to buy bags.
Yeah,
And then they also will sell bags, so if you go on the recreation department website, you could buy a bag for $25 and that would go to future bags. But people don't really do that, but they could. And also I've had people call me and say, I want a bag. I've lived in Bristol for 15 years, but I'd love to see what's in the bag. And so,
What's
What
in
is
the
in the
bag?
bag?
What's in the bag?
Yeah, what's in the
what is
bag,
in
Gordon?
that?
See, I think I got one. I think I got one. I didn't know who Porter was at the time, but.
Money on her own.
Yeah, I know, I
Yeah.
can tell that, yes, that's what I'm
A
gathering.
little shy on talking.
Yeah, no, I'm getting that, yep, yeah, for sure, and I think that's a beautiful thing, and also,
So probably some
Not
money could
sustainable.
go for that.
yep.
So, gave a half dozen of them to the town clerk, just so that if somebody comes in to the office, they could just hand them to them, so.
Yeah.
Bag,
Cute,
Bristol Rot,
that's, yeah.
best, period, town, period, ever, period, that's the Bristol Trail Network
And,
motto.
yeah,
Love
okay,
it.
BTN at the bottom.
Yeah, so, and so part of when I conceived this idea was, I said to the town clerk, like, what are the questions people ask when they move to town?
Yeah,
And she said, there's
Yeah.
really only two questions people always ask. The first is, what do I do with my trash?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say trash.
And the other is, where's that trail? So that's sort of how I started doing it. So basically, this is kind of messed up, but there's like a welcome thing. Then we have the thing from the page from the town report that says like who to contact and stuff. That's just the first page of the town report. We just started adding
oh,
this.
that's such a great, I know
This
the one that
booklet,
made that,
Freedom and Unity, which is about town meeting
so
and,
great, yeah.
and then what do I do with my trash? Bristol Rec Club, Bristol Trail Network, Boy Scouts, Front Porch Forum, and they actually started sending something also. The Food Shelf, the Historical Society, Places of Worship in Bristol, the Police Department, they're doing a new one. 4th of July Committee, the Kitchen Soup Project, the Bristol Peace Garden, the library, the Masons, Five Town Friends of the Arts, Bristol Mentoring, Bristol Rescue Squad, and they also have 911 things. And then Bristol Core, Mount Abe, Friends of Mount Abe Musicals. And then this is a new one, which is a program called Imagine Addison County, which is trying to recruit people to Addison County or welcome new people to Addison County, so I put that in too.
Nice.
So the fire department is working on a new one, that would be in there, and so twice a year I send out a thing to all of those people.
To get their material.
And, well, no, I print most of them, but I just say like, this is what I'm using for you, is that still good?
Yeah,
You know, in case
Does
I
it need to
change
be
something.
updated?
yeah, and so the thing you purchase is the bag,
And then everything
then
that
the
looks
print.
like it was printed at Kimball, I print.
yeah. so
And then the
printed.
nice ones that have like color and
Yeah.
stuff, like some of those send me them, like the mentoring,
Yeah.
they send me one, whatever, but.
Yeah,
And if somebody like makes one up and they send it to me and it's like color and stuff, I'm like, I can't do that. But if I can print it on colored paper, then,
yeah,
but anyway,
how much does a bag cost, do you think?
I don't remember off the top of my head,
Or
the
how
bag
much do you think you
itself, I
spend
think
per
is like,
year?
so the bag itself is, I think like $16 or $18, and then it's a couple dollars in
Swag.
stuff that goes in it. Kimball's doesn't break it out for me. I have an account, so,
So say 20.
yeah, I said like $500 a year. That was my guesstimate.
Got it.
It's well worth it. You drop off that bag and people are, oh, you know, you got one.
We got one.
OMG.
Take that one.
Here you go.
There you go.
Give you one.
As a special party gift, you get your welcome gift.
Maybe you won't leave now.
That's
Add
right.
like a little something from
I'm not leaving
Vermont
Bristol.
Yeah.
Marketplace
What's that?
or something.
I'm not leaving Bristol.
I know, but I saw you nodding your head when they were talking about like all the data review. I know you're
He
gonna
was
look at that.
You're
data.
excited
Yeah.
about the
I
day.
You don't.
Well, there's nothing to stop you from when and if things settle down, you wanna
Or
volunteer.
you can
check
be a
in with us.
lawyer, you
Keep
Well,
can.
in
that's what I was
touch,
gonna say, is
lawyer.
like, I mean, if you can
You can
make
sit
that,
with me
make
and
do
Jim
with me,
back here.
like, missing probably half of things.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I said a while back too, is my schedule sometimes takes me away, so
Yeah.
I'm here as often as I possibly
But
can.
the thing is, if you stay on the committee and you miss one, then the committee still has you and you can weigh in.
I'm
But then you
open to
cover
that.
for
No,
somebody
yeah,
else.
no pressure,
Awesome.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be
I wanna
great.
make, I wanna make sure that we're not bombarding you, it's like,
You're the
read your mind, you know,
One of us.
Well, the other part to it too is not wanting to leave without, helping recruit too, I mean.
Yeah, we should make that a rule, that if you're gonna leave, you have to find your replacement.
Can't go until you find somebody to take your place.
Yeah,
Like I said,
Well,
it was a struggle to think about, and because it's like, My father-in-law recently diagnosed with Parkinson's. My dad's cancer struggles are getting a little worse. One of them's in Ohio, one of them's in Idaho, like, plus then travel for work, so.
Yeah.
So I just knew I'd been not as able to participate as much as felt.
I don't think
I
anyone held
committed to.
anything against you.
Nope,
So,
Not that I'm aware of.
no.
Okay.
We've all had our,
in that
scheduling
case,
or
we'll
struggles.
put that on a pause then, for now, yeah.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
mean, I feel like we are gathering and talking about important things, and if we can move a piece forward,
I
you
would
know,
really love to continue to help with that.
by December, that would
Because I
be
believe the
awesome, and
committee
then we
is
just
extremely
keep.
valuable. Yeah.
As long as there's 3 bodies, for a quorum to start the meeting, that's all we need.
Well, we can have
I
a
mean, we'd
meeting
like
without a quorum, we
engagement
just
and whatnot,
don't
we don't
have
want forces,
official
but-
minutes or take official action. We can have a conversation then.
I mean, you guys,
But we're an
Pocock's
advisory
been-
committee.
Pocock Bristol's been around for several hundred years, like, you don't have to do something overnight, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think
Just keep
that's,
moving, it's okay.
yeah,
Just feels a little more urgent than it used to, I think,
yeah,
the work, yeah.
agreed. And also, we're all engaged in that in a lot of ways. And so I think that's important too. In our own ways, we wanna keep doing good work.
That makes me think, one of the things on a survey, one of the demographics was age, one of them? Because I did try to get surveys through, some youth surveys through the hub,
Yeah.
and nobody responded.
Yeah.
Apparently, if you don't basically give it to them and then sit them down and have them do
That
it.
sounds about
And
right.
that's not the kind of response,
Yeah,
I think, that we want to force people to respond.
yeah,
But I didn't know what kind of youth responses we had, and so that's an age group we're probably missing.
I would say probably,
That's a group you could do a focus group with.
totally.
Yeah,
I mean, that's almost an easy one, to go sometime to the hub after school. I mean, it's amazing how many kids pop in and out of there and just, if you give them a pizza,
Right.
they will
If they know
say,
where the free food
"Hey,
is.
you get a slice for every question you answer." But,
or one of their community dinners that they've been doing.
yeah,
Although those have been attended by fewer youth and more
Yeah.
family and community members, but.
yeah.
So I just pulled up the survey again, and you were looking, let's see, go to demographics. Household type,
I think the age was on there, I know there was employment status,
gender, age is on there.
but I have a feeling that there's not many 18 or below filling out a survey for that.
There are not very many. This is.
Are there
Um,
any?
But 18 to 30, well, yeah, actually, what's the percentage? 12% was 18 to 30.
But you brought
But
up,
not young, no, there's no age bracket younger than that.
but you brought up the focus groups again, which was part of what I think we wanted some of this data to then help guide us to doing also.
Yes,
And that potentially, depending on how we would want to organize them, that could be a part that uses at least a little bit of funding, if mentioning the idea of pizza or something.
yeah,
To say come on, we'll provide some refreshments and food, and that's not a lot of funding, but
yeah.
could be some.
It's federal money though, right? We can't use it for food.
It's not federal money,
Oh,
it's
it's not
Vermont
federal money.
Community Foundation and it's
Oh, that's right.
yours
I was
now.
thinking it was ARPA funds. That was the first
Not
one.
our money.
And then also, you
Yeah.
can use money to pay people to attend focus groups.
Oh, really?
A
I mean,
stipend.
Yes, pay
Yeah.
people a stipend when we do that.
One thing you might think about is not to slow down the work that you already have underway. So go ahead and be done with that sort of survey piece of things. And then maybe when you go out with the work plan with your functioning vision or mission statement, then do that in feedback conversations
Yeah.
with groups. So they have something to respond to.
Yep.
Because if you just keep gathering data,
Yeah.
then you don't get to move forward, but you have 170 responses that you can parse to inform your values, and that can drive your work plan, and then you can, go out there and start talking about what you're gonna do and get more ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's kind of what I was trying to say to AZ was it could be cool if when you do your survey, you say, what do you think about these responses to this survey that was just done? Does that resonate with your experience? You know, do you agree, do you not agree, what's missing? But so I think we can do that.
So yeah, it sounds like it's probably a way to partner, we'll help signal boost signal boost their,
Yeah,
their survey.
yeah,
And say, by the way, can you ask these,
yeah.
follow-up
right.
questions on what we've already,
Exactly. We're good at partnering and piggybacking.
gotta share resources where we can.
Yeah. So I wonder if, we can do like another push for, going down to open seats and member recruitment, before our next meeting, or we can also do it when we share out our themes.
I mean, I think given the feedback we've got so far, I think doing it multiple times in multiple ways is gonna benefit us the most.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was supposed to put a plug in for this meeting.
I had intended to do it, send another one again, but it didn't.
Okay,
My schedule.
I didn't do any, so I'll do, next week I'll put one out. Maybe if everyone gets a chance between now and our next meeting, which I think I wanted to look at because
It's the 3rd or the 4th.
I think we are
sorry.
on the,
June 25 is
June
the date that
25.
we have
so
here.
are we on the 4th?
Okay.
1, 2, 3, yeah, we're on the 4th Wednesdays. Okay. June 25 does, yes, the next week.
So wouldn't last Wednesday have been too early then? Isn't this the right?
You think
Yeah.
that's
I think this is right, I think we're the 4th Wednesday.
Let me say I think that's what I had in my calendar.
Yeah,
Even though in my email I said Thursday, not Wednesday.
I know, and then I got all confused today, I panicked, as I was sitting up.
I saw Thursday, I'm like, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna step away, cause so you previously said, about asking if she'll show up on Wednesday or not, and I'm like, he knows
No,
what he knows.
that's what, having the one Monday off, then I start thinking like, okay, Tuesday is actually Monday and Wednesday is actually Tuesday.
I thought yesterday was Friday. So
I just gotta make sure I program it into my calendar, and
Yeah.
it'll send me a reminder.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it looks like it keeps coming up, usually it tells you, if I open it, it tells you what the recurrence is, but it's saying unsupported recurrence, which is really weird, I've never seen that before. But I do see it on my calendar on the 4th Wednesday of the month. But I am probably to take my daughter to Boston on the 25th for a doctor's appointment at 3.
ooh,
So I will not.
And you will not
probably-
be back.
Yeah, unless my husband takes her, but I have a feeling I'm gonna be doing that trip. So I'm not
Do
able
we
to
wanna
do that.
swap the date? So maybe the 24th or the 26th?
I could do that. Would that work for you, Brian?
I don't have my calendar in front, my calendar in front of me, so I don't know for certain.
Okay,
Um,
do you want me to send you an email right now? Just
Yes.
Okay,
And then I can
I'll say
respond.
pick a date.
And Trevor doesn't have his phone, so he doesn't know.
no, I do.
And Trevor's
When we were thinking
absent,
of
right?
like the 3rd, that's the one that I wouldn't be here for. But the
Okay.
4th week of the month, I am back,
Oh,
so.
Well, there we go,
I
we
can
just
do
solved
that
all our
week, yeah.
problems.
I'll be back on the 21st, so after that, up until
Okay.
beginning of July, I'm back.
And would you know if you could do the 24th or the 26th?
Either one.
Let me
Okay.
just check.
I don't have
How about
any
you,
other.
Darla?
I have another board meeting
So this is
on
not a Monday?
So
no, that's okay, that's, shouldn't be on the 24th.
The 26th will be what?
The 26th would be better for me.
That's probably, it's probably my Addison Housing Works.
Oh, the fourth
board meeting.
Thursday?
Usually my Thursdays, all except like one Thursday a month are board meetings.
Let me just look at something here.
And are there any conflicts for this space on either of those days?
No, that's Tuesday, yeah, that is Tuesday.
Tuesday might, because sometimes they've got, I think the planning and zoning, AZ's committee, planning and zoning committee meets one of the Tuesdays.
Well, I
Should be on that
would,
meeting calendar on the computer though, right?
I would volunteer we could do it at my house, but then we don't, I have an owl at my home.
Do you really?
I do for work. It's still in the box, you can tell I haven't opened it, because I didn't know how to set this one up, but I do have one. But I don't know how public that feels if we have public people who wanna come. Maybe
You could do it just Zoom,
we could
Oh,
do it
that's
just
true.
Zoom.
We all just
as
remote
long
in.
as the town Zoom lets 2 Zooms run at once, if there's another meeting happening.
As long as they have different IDs, it should be okay.
Did you find a day then?
We're discussing still. Let me just double check something. So yeah, Tuesday I have the Bristol Family Center Board meeting from 6:30 to 7:30. But
Well, if we're starting at 7, I think for the summer, they're done at 6 or 6:30. I don't know that I'd be able to make it here in person, but I could at least Zoom in. If we're moving it, that Thursday works for everybody.
I can also ask if we can move our board meeting to 6, which would get done at 7. I could zip down here or just come or be remote.
Does that feel like a lot? Yeah.
They're a pretty laid back group.
Okay. Okay, so we're thinking the 24th? Or you're gonna look and get back to us?
As long as we're starting at 7, I'm pretty sure I can, at the very least, hop on Zoom on the 26th, which is that
Okay,
Thursday, which
so maybe
makes
let's do that then, so
Okay.
you don't have
Sounds
a,
like it makes it
So
easier
their
for
next
folks.
meeting's gonna be on the
the
26th.
26th,
Okay,
Which is a Thursday, right?
Thursday.
yeah, at 7.
So say that one more time,
26th
Thursday the 26th at 7.
At 7.
at 6.
And on Zoom for sure, or to be determined?
Let's say Zoom.
Let's say Zoom, if you're gonna be, yeah, let's say Zoom.
So, it might be good to put that on Front Porch Forum and make sure the clerk knows that right away, just so they have that on their mindset, and then
Okay.
reiterate it again when the notes go out and stuff.
I can do that, Darla. I can
Okay.
do the agenda.
That'd be great.
You've got notes, right?
I get notes.
Okay.
I think on Thursdays, the bike and pedestrian route meets.
Is that it? You would know.
I think don't they meet remotely, Jim, or do they meet in person?
They're all Zoom,
They're all Zoom, that's what I thought.
So we could use just
and
different
they're usually
Zoom
pretty
account.
quick, they're done in minutes, nobody shows.
And
Chris.
we don't need to use the town Zoom, do we? Can we just use our,
I don't know, I can ask Ian that question.
cause if it's already being used.
But I think you can have more than one meeting happen, as long as they have different IDs, I think.
Oh, okay,
And
got
the
it.
town prefers that we always use the town Zoom.
Yeah,
Got it.
I know Ian takes it and then edits it down before he posts it publicly,
the recording,
the recording, yeah,
correct,
yeah. So I think he probably needs it to be the town Zoom one.
yeah.
So it's really early to have them post our next meeting, but
I
you're
don't think you need
saying,
to post it,
just
just give
give
them a heads up
that it's
that
gonna
we've
be
changed the
remote.
normal day
That the-
and
the room would be
it's going to be
available.
Zoom only. Just because they do sometimes get questions, and I think that's just protocol, and then.
Call it a special meeting,
Is it a special meeting or a
call it a
change,
special meeting, cause
change
you
of normal?
changing your normal routine.
I think that's only when, I think special meeting is when you have to call a meeting that you don't have time to properly warn within the 48 hours.
Either way, if you just tell them about it,
Yeah,
they'll-
just
I
say
mean,
for
but it
one,
could
for
be a
one,
very
for 1 month, we have to adjust the schedule,
Mhm.
and that way.
So I made a note to ask Ian about the Zoom account. I'll do that. Just to double check. Cause I know on my work Zoom, we often have overlapping meetings on the same account,
Mhm.
but better to ask than to be in a bind.
Suddenly have all these people joining our meeting going,
Yeah.
like, oh, they're all here for, oh, no, they're not here for
You're not
us.
here to talk about early childhood, what?
Alright, any info swapping that folks wanna do, or any other new business?
I don't have anything, so.
I'm not sure that I can expand on anything, but you did ask about the committee that I applied to join.
Yes. As a Medicaid,
Yeah, Medicaid was looking to create a beneficiary advisory committee.
yep,
You had to meet one of 4 criteria, which is either you've been on it, you're currently on it, you have a family member that's on it, or you work with people that are on Medicaid.
yep,
And supposedly, once it's formed, they'll be advising the director for Vermont on potential policy changes and all that. So I'm like, well, I've been on it. I'm likely my grand scheme of things, I'm looking to work part-time a little bit, but I just gotta find time. Is to get back on it for the working disabled.
yep,
And so I'm like, and I've already spoke with her, her name's Monica Wooley, is the head.
yep,
And talking about, if she had questions or whatnot from, quote unquote lived experience, I was willing to share. So I just figured this was an opportunity.
Yeah.
I think their plan is they're gonna try to meet quarterly.
yep,
If not, if necessary, they might bump it up to every other month.
yep.
Brian, can you tell me, I missed it for the notes.
They call it BAC, Beneficiary Advisory Committee.
Thank you.
I think their plan is that they're taking applications right now, then they're gonna reach out to folks, sometime mid-June.
Yep.
And I figured with all my experiences and my fingers in different things, that I might be an asset to their, to their pool of people.
It's just so awesome because when you have experience in all the different systems, you can offer such an important perspective to the folks that run those systems and that kind of forget that there's like people who are receiving the services of that system, and what that's like, so.
I figured it was like, okay, it's only a rare meeting, I don't have to go, it's not like every month.
Yeah,
So I can add one more to the list.
good for you. Well, I'll just share that at the Vermont Family Network where I work, we're keeping a close eye on lots of things, including Medicaid and changes to the way that designated agencies provide case management and determine how they're gonna pay out funding assistance for things like folks who have a disability who need a personal care assistant. They're changing their whole model of how they do that case management, so that the agency that is distributing the money isn't the same agency that's determining how much you get. And so they are finally moving toward what's called like a conflict-free case management system, which has been a long time in the works. But we're also paying really close attention to the education transformation proposals that are going through the House and the Senate and trying to figure out specifically what that means for families and kids with, families of kids with disabilities and kids with disabilities. So what will special education look like in this new and imagined structured framework way that we deliver education in the state? Because right now, many families, or many kids are not getting all of the services that they're entitled to because there are just not enough staff in the state to provide those services, or they're like spread across, really far districts. And so we're paying attention to redistricting and also to independent schools and therapeutic schools, and there's just a lot in the mix that could impact lots of things about how we deliver education, and also specifically things in special ed.
So they went to, help me remember, they're going to a special committee, right? Is that what's happening with that whole thing now?
It sounds like it passed the Senate, but now it's going back to work through the.
Right, and what I read today was they're hoping to have a resolution by the end of the week.
Yeah.
And the governor's sitting in on those meetings when he usually sends a staff member.
Well, I think that's great, because then he won't just veto, and there's, like, hopefully they'll figure out the compromise that he will not veto, and nobody's gonna get everything they want for
I'm just
sure.
concerned that they're pushing it through too quickly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
instead of taking the summer, which they could have done, to really, anyway.
Yeah.
That's my concern about it, but I can imagine that you guys are keeping an eye on it.
Yeah. Yep, it's gonna be big changes, so we shall see.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't have anything to share, this time around as far as information swap. A lot of it is things that we brought up this evening, you know, the concern around housing, for families, the concern around, basic needs, just, I sat in on the Hunger Council meeting this week, they now call themselves something else, and I'm not gonna remember what they're called, but, huge concerns around the cuts that are being made to those services and how they're distributing, food to the elderly, summer meals, all of those things are all very much up in the air in a big way. Big concerns about how people are going to be eating in the future. So that's what I can offer for today.
Well, at least the sun is out.
Yes. It was, it's not gonna be for the next few days.
And it's going away, right, okay. Do you
Welcome
guys
to
have
Vermont.
anything that you wanna add or share? No? Okay.
Just in time with the music.
Ta-da!
Food security networks, that's what they're called. Just came back in my brain.
Great.
So they have a committee called, it's called like FANE or something like that, Food Access Something Network.
Is that another one?
I know, because there's a bunch of folks that, from different groups that regarding, food and like food shelves and WIC and all that. Because I sat in on a meeting for them recently, part of the state health improvement plan, we ended up doing a presentation. Well, two others did the presentation, I sat in on it just to, watch them. And yeah, everybody's scrambling. It seems to be every meeting I go to, everybody, what do we do? Okay, take a breath, what can we focus on right now that we can?
Right.
Like last month, everybody, all the state and community partners were saying, we're just gonna do business as usual until we can't do business as usual.
Right.
And this month, they're saying we can't do business as usual.
Uh-huh.
That's where we're at. So next meeting, June 26th,
June 26th.
7 PM, Zoom.
On the Zoom. I just let Sharon know, and then I'll do agenda.
Nice, thank you.
All right,
Is
folks.
there anything else we need to do to find a town liaison?
Did you not get a warm fuzzy from me?
I know.
That you may or may not be interested,
Yeah,
or they may not be interested. I haven't done anything
I'm
else.
forgetting she came
And
to our
Amy,
meeting.
yeah.
I'm sorry?
Amy, I think.
Yes,
yeah.
Amy, yeah. I thought she was looking at
And I
possibly
think
doing
she's in
it.
a similar.
Is that something we should sit in on the select board and just throw it out there and say, if they know of anybody, or?
Yeah,
I mean, I know we're not supposed to try to put too much on them, we're supposed to be an advisory, but.
Right. I also just wonder if it's the kind of thing where we just keep inviting different town folks to come based on what we're talking about or doing.
Yeah,
And again, I don't think it hurts to just keep putting it out on
Yeah.
Front Porch Forum or other, other places that we can.
For members.
For members.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you say you were gonna put out a plea?
Yeah, I'll do the next one.
I will fix up these notes and send them out tomorrow,
Thanks, darling.
or maybe Friday, depending on what my schedule looks like tomorrow.
maybe when you put yours out, just send an email to the group, and then one of us can say, okay,
Tag
I'll
you.
send
Yeah,
one in,
we'll do it in a couple
3
of days,
days.
yeah.
Okay,
And then that person
That's
emails
a
the
good
group,
idea.
and that way we can keep it kind of going.
okay, that's a good idea. I need to get some food.
And I like the one that you did, which is what I modeled after.
And I
It's kind of
stole
like
from it
saying-
too.
Yeah, it's kind of like saying,
I
like,
have
here we
my
are,
moments
but
where
while
I'm like,
you
I
were
just need
there.
to,
Yeah.
sit down, focus, and then I can, craft, I don't wanna say gold, but,
But it was nice because it was to the point, but also made it personal at the same time. It was
Yeah.
like that really nice balance. so,
Yeah.
Which I think is what people
Oh, now I'm
resonate.
gonna have to go see if I
to a
can
little
find
bit.
that one and see what I can put yours into ChatGPT.
I was gonna say,
Make like this only in my voice.
I don't do that.
Go right
My
there.
boss has been like, just do
I'm
this,
not gonna
like,
get
throw
after you
everything
for
into,
plagiarism, so.
like our company has our own version of it that's
Yeah.
approved.
Okay, yeah.
Because it has to be PHI approved, but
Yep.
they're
It
like,
has
do
to.
this, do that. I'm like, I don't do that yet. I don't know.
I know, it is a fun thing.
So far, I just use it like it's a fancy Google search.
Yeah.
You seriously can't take that, Trevor. You got one, right? I gave them to
Thank
everybody.
you.
I'm pretty sure we actually,
I hung them
went
on.
around with,
I'm saying
Tori.
goodnight to Zoom,
Yeah, we hung them on the
everybody.
Way back, I think you guys actually caught me in the apartment.
Yeah,
Who's knocking at my door?
that was us.